SDWT Podcast. Yes, today this is probably again gonna be this stoicism subreddit, unless we're gonna find something by going through the subreddit that is actually more interesting than the subreddit. But yeah, there we see Streamlabs, blah bloop. No, that's not the right one. And there we are. What is the stoic way to brush my teeth? What the fuck? Been cringing lately at the excessive attempts to apply stoicism to everything on this board. It is not a one-fits-all philosophy for all of life. It works great with some facets of life, and it works better when combined with other philosophies too. Yeah, this is essentially what I was talking about yesterday, that sometimes it is incredibly I mean, of course, when I don't know, the problem is, how couldn't you think of the fact that this might not apply to everything, that stoicism might not work for every single facet of your life, for every single thing in your life. I mean, of course, for some people it might be, for some things, and also for some people it might be really applicable, but for some things and some people it definitely is not gonna be the case. So yeah, definitely also something to think about. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance. To the Stoic community, thank you for your advice, and I hope I could keep on learning from you all. I hope I could. This hasn't been a hectic year, and I appreciate for all the advices the community has provided me. Thank you again. Is mental health within your control? This is actually a really good question. I'm willing to see what people are saying. That is a really good comparison. Well, let's read. Is it within my control is the most basic of Stoic thoughts process in my opinion. It is my go-to when faced with anything, but I can't figure this out, or this one out. How much of mental health is within our control? I get extremely sad and angry because of hormones sometimes, especially now that I'm going through pregnancy, and get irrational urges to destroy and hurt objects, other people or myself. I know not to act on it, and I have been to therapy, which helped tremendously, but I still wonder, is this something I could control? Can one rationalize and meditate out of something like depression? That is a really good comparison. Well, I don't know if it is a good comparison, but it is indeed a good question. This is really not a helpful answer in practical terms, beyond the most basic level of practice, which is given by the fact that OP and almost everyone else reading this already knows this fact already. That's why the Stoic dichotomy of control goes much, much deeper than what seems obvious when you read the philosophers. Oh, comment deleted by user. I see. This is why. Yeah. Similar to Stoic probe, whatever, but on a much less complex scale, we inevitably get into a cycle of proving a negative as to whether or not X events are in our sphere of influence if we are using the beginner's conception of the dichotomy of control as we are here. It is not a winning game once you're past the most basic level of actions where this kind of advice may apply, like getting enough sleep or eating your vegetables. And even then, everyone already knows these facts for all the good it does us. Many people know many facts, but many people that know many facts do not act on them. So I think and believe that it is indeed fine to be like, take care of your basic needs, eat enough, sleep enough, especially sleep enough, get your vitamins in, and so on and so forth. Very important and also very crucial. But have never been able to, and that is not even touching the fact that that when we feel negative emotional states, we have already violated the Stoic dichotomy of control in the deeper sense of the term, which is what the Stoic passions fundamentally mean. And yet there is another one deleted by someone 6 hours ago. Blee blah bloop. I don't know who this was. Anyway. It is a really complicated question with a lot of levels to it. I can only give you my take on it as practicing Stoic of many years. I recognize your username as well, so I know you're not exactly new to all of this. I had clinical depression diagnosed by multiple doctors, and Stoic practice ultimately cured it, also diagnosed by multiple doctors. Other people with the same diagnosis cannot say the same, and that goes for pretty much any mental illness, because the diagnosis seem to be somewhat broad in circumstances, even with the same titles sometimes. So let's break them into the distinctions that I found quite helpful. Mental and chemical illnesses. Note, these are my own words and definitions as a philosopher, so if you try and apply clinical terminology to the coming paragraphs without accounting for that, it will likely seem ridiculous. A mental illness, in my mind, is one, like I experienced depression, purely born out of my own poorly constructed beliefs about life at the end of the day, even though it can take a lot of effort to unravel that. My upbringing and childhood situation led me to construct a lot of these beliefs, and I went to a lot of therapy too, but ultimately Stoic philosophy allowed me to change them, and when I changed those beliefs, they changed the emotional responses. I had the same situation. Depression cured. Note that I am taking serious Stoic practice here to the tune of reading the philosophers every day, cumulatively, hundreds of times over the years, and counting and carefully practicing what I read today just as diligently as I did in the beginning to get out of this philosophy what you put into it. As so many things, or as in so many things, or regarding so many things. As a practice Stoic, I do hold that any situation that does not require prescription medical treatment is ultimately treatable with Stoic philosophy. For anyone who needs medical treatment, they are better off seeking a doctor rather than a philosopher. However, and here we complicate things even further, some people grow up in truly challenging circumstances where even if they do not need prescription treatment, therapy will get them to the starting line of Stoic practice a hell lot faster than they could ever do on their own. And this is definitely also a pretty good point. In the end, they might be able to get to the same point, but it really takes quite a shit ton of time, maybe. Where pregnancy comes into the dynamic, I do not know. A doctor would know a whole lot better than me, to put it mildly. The takeaways here, in my view: medical treatment and Stoic practice are not mutually exclusive. If in doubt, go to the doctor, even as you read the Stoic philosophers. I mean, if I'm fucking breaking my arm, there's no usefulness in meditating on it, period. There's no harm in doing both. Beyond that, Stoic practice is something you really do have to take seriously to make a major progress. If concepts like the Stoic principles of desire and ascent are unfamiliar to you, you haven't read the philosophers nearly enough yet to even begin truly tracking these problems in the Stoic way. Note, this is not directed at you specifically, as you didn't write enough to tell, just a general message of readers. The discipline of desire is particularly critical in the sense of addressing the problems you are describing here, with essence playing an important second. On the same token of medical treatment, philosophy not being mutually exclusive, it is also only to your detriment to assume your problems are purely medical in nature and thus cannot be treated by Stoic practice. If you assume they are chemical in nature, do nothing on the Stoic level, and are wrong. You're solving nothing. When in doubt, do both. I would say so as really well. That is my take on it, for whatever is worth. Yes, when in doubt, just do both. When in doubt, of course, having a great mindset and being well equipped with philosophies or other guiding principles is always going to be a really fucking good idea. Period. And yeah, with that being said, I'm going to see you the next time, I at least hope.